Okay, we're back. We are back. We are in the fifth chapter of Hilchas Avodas Kochavim. We finished the fourth parak that discussed Ir Nidachas, and we now move on to the Mesis. The Mesis is certainly related to the Meidiach. They are both bad people that like to cause trouble and incite other people for Avodah Zarah purposes. So we began saying how when it comes to the Mesis, we do everything but give the benefit of the doubt. Whatever the word for that in English is, I'm not sure. But we bend over backwards to try to kill him, and we give him no escape route, as opposed to other people that may sin and do other, violations that are deserving of capital punishment. But there's something very, very special about the Mesis that we throw the book at. So, for example, in Halacha Gimel, we mentioned that he doesn't need Hasra like the typical person does when they commit a violation. You don't have to, usually you have to warn someone, you have to, according to Rashi, you have to quote the Pasuk, right? There's a lot of things a lot of things have to happen in order to finally execute someone. Right, that's why it was very, very difficult to execute someone, because a lot of things had to go right. When it comes to the Mesis, we do the opposite. We don't need Hasra, and that's what we learned in Halacha Gimel. And we also learned in Halacha Gimel that we could do what they call entrapment. Right, remember that? We set him up, and we hide two witnesses, and we say, "Oh, could you just repeat what you told us? Not a big deal." Right? You basically you basically lead him on so that we could kill him, right? The reason why we love killing Mesis, or whatever the plural of Mesiot, is because they could, they're a one-man wrecking crew, and they could influence lots of people, and you don't want those kind of people around. So it makes sense to, to kill them and not give them the benefit of the doubt. So in Halacha Dalid, that we're going to start now, we're going to discuss a number of unusual laws regarding the Mesis that break the rule of giving the benefit of the doubt. First of all, mitzvah biyad hamusat lahargo. So believe it or not, we know that usually it's the Sanhedrin that end up killing a person who's chayiv misa. But when it comes to a Mesis, the one who actually kills the Mesis is the Musas. In other words, the person who the Mesis influenced. So for revenge, after this person unfortunately realizes that he was taken for a ride, so forget about what his punishment is for now, but he has to actually, he's the one that turns on the electric chair, believe it or not, right? He is the executioner. How do you know? Because the pasuk actually says that his hand is the first to kill. Okay, and after the incitee realizes that he was taken for a ride, so he's got to say, okay, everything this guy told me was a lie. Everything he tried to influence me is all wrong. So therefore, I hate his guts. Now, are you allowed to hate someone? 99% of the time, that is a big, big no-no. But when it comes to Mesis, as I said many, many times, we do the opposite. If usually you have to love someone, when it comes to the Mesis, you have to hate him. Okay, Shenema lo toveh lo. Okay, do not desire him. Ulefi shenemar besona azov tazov imo. When it comes to a sona, remember this back in Mishpatim, where the Torah gave the situation where you're traveling and you see the guy in front of you, his donkey overturn, right, and he gets a flat tire, and you don't like him, so you're like, whoa, this would be a great opportunity to wave by him and give him the finger, right? So the Torah says, no, you have to overcome your desire and you have to help him out. So that's when it comes to even someone who you hate. Could you imagine someone who you love? Right. So that's the discussion the Gemara has elsewhere. But for this purpose, but for this purpose, the Rambam is stating that when it comes to a typical person, you have to help him. Okay, but yachalata ozev lazeh tamid lomar lo tishmai alav. What if the mason is in trouble? Could you help him? Nope, you can't help him. You can't get him out of his situation. And even, I don't think the ACLU would even be able to help him. Believe it or not. Okay, no one liked that one. I tried. I have no audience left, so I don't know. What can I tell you? Okay. So here's another example where we have to bend over backwards to distance this person. We know that you can't stand still while your friend is in trouble, right? That's the pasuk that discusses someone's drowning, right? You got to help him. Do whatever you can to help your friend, to help a fellow Jew. What if you see a masis that is in trouble? He's in a burning building. Should you help him? No. Talmud Lomer lo sachos. Excuse me. I might think that you can't just stand idle while this masis burns to death. Talmud Lomer v'lo sachos eincha. Right? You can't have pity on him. Chas, right? Like the word chas v'shalom, right? Chas, right? You can't have pity on him. And the musas, the one who is influenced, cannot defend the masis, right? We don't help him. We don't get a lawyer for him. We don't let him we don't teach him how to defend himself. We stay away from him. Shenemer lo sachmol, have no compassion. V'miyada lo chova. And what if it's the opposite? What if I know things that this masis did? Eno rashai lishtok mimen. You have to say, you got to spill the beans. Shenemar v'lo sachasa elav. Don't cover up for him. All right, so we have 5 or 6 exceptions that we go absolutely nuts. And I'm just going to add, I don't want to be too controversial, but the Gemara in Sanhedrin and Mem Gimel or so, the parts where the part that was edited out of the Talmud that talks about Jesus and the apostles and everything. That's why, that's part because we, at least in our tradition, Jesus was the masis par excellence. He's the paradigm. And that's why we did whatever we did, right, to basically get rid of him. It wasn't that controversial what I said, but that's what our Talmud teaches us in Sanhedrin Mem Gimel. Anyways, V'azhara lehedyot ha-mesas minayin. Now, the Rambam always gives you the pasuk that gives you the azhara, right? It always gives you, right? We need a warning. What pasuk warns us about the mesis? It says, Shenemar v'chol Yisrael yishma'u v'yira'u. Okay, so the hedyot mesis is a regular guy who becomes a mesis, as opposed to, we're going to see a navi sheker, right? That's someone who claims to be a navi. That's a different pasuk. But the pasuk for a regular Joe, right, your garden variety Jim Jones, right, to be a mesis. So Shenemar v'chol Yisrael yishmu v'yira'u. Okay, it says that everybody will hear, and they will become afraid, and not to continue in the bad ways. Okay, so those are a few laws of a mesis. Now we're going to talk about hamesis acherim la'avdo. So here's something. A mesis could, there's different flavors. A guy could say, okay, this is a great avodah zarah to do. Or he says, you know what, I got a great idea. Why don't you bow down to me? How about I be your God for today? Right? Sounds preposterous. But he got a following. And he convinced other people to at least attempt to worship him. So if the people actually did it and they worshipped him, then niskal. Then this mesis gets skila. V'im lo avduhu. What if he just convinced them, but they never ended up, for whatever reason, actually bowing down to this person? Afal pisha kiblu memenu va'amru hein eno niskal. They were about to, something happened, and they didn't. So then this mesis does not get skila. Okay, now we're going to contrast this to a mesis that says, go serve something else, but not serving me. If I convince people if Ruvain convinces Shimon, okay, to bow down to Levi, okay, or to bow down to a statue, im kibel memenu, if Shimon accepted, the Amar Hain, and he said, I heard your speech. It sounds like a great idea. I am about to do it. So the difference is, what if Shimon's car broke down along the way and never ended up doing Avodah Zarah? So what would you say? You'd say, well, he didn't do it. The answer is no. Even if you don't end up doing it, and we spoke about this before, just the idea, just accepting that you're going to do this, that is enough to be Machayev Misa. And both of them get killed. Okay? Once you accept, okay, even if it never ends up happening, you are still Chayev Misa. Hamesis v'hamusas, both of them, Shenemar lo so velo, v'lo tishma alav. Right? The Ashara, the warning is, don't be attracted to the Mesis and don't listen to him. So the Rambam Darshans, Hayim Shama v'ava Chayev. The Torah says not to be attracted. What if you were attracted and you listened to him and you were about to do it, but you didn't end up doing it? Nevertheless, that's all you need. You don't actually have to do the actual worshiping. All you need is to accept it and show the intent. Usually in halacha, intent, and actually doing something doesn't matter. But here is one of the exceptions, that even if I intend and my car breaks down on the way and I never end up doing it, I am still chayav. Okay, so now let's talk about Navi Sheker. Okay, the Rambam is going to segue to a Navi Sheker. What is a Navi Hamisnaba B'Shem Avodas Kochavim Keitzad? What does it mean for a person who describes himself as a prophet and he prophesizes, right, in the name of an Avodah Zarah? So let's discuss that. Keitzad, give me an example. So says the Rambam, Zeha Omer, Amrli Avodas Kochavim Plonis. Person wakes up one day and he says, it's funny, I was walking home last night and this Avodah Zarah came to me. Oh, Kochav Ploni, Shemitzvah, or planet Jupiter came to me in my dream and started talking to me. And he said, Shemitzvah lasos kach v'kach. And he said, I think it's a good idea that we all get together and build a temple. That's what Jupiter told me in my dream. So, Oshalo lasos. Or you do something, or they said, Jupiter told me that this law that we have about keeping Shabbos is a farce, and we ought to do away with it. Even, what if he said, what, Jupiter told me that there's a mitzvah to wear tzitzis, there's a mitzvah to do this, there's a mitzvah to have taras hamishpacha, and the mitzvah to do this, and it's usher, and you can't eat pig, and he's quoting this planet that came to him, and it sounds like everything that halacha believes in. So there's nothing wrong, or there's nothing, misleading, but nevertheless, because he's claiming that it came to him in a dream from an Avodah Zarah or from a planet, that is bad. Okay, we're entering a new type of capital punishment. We discussed skila, right? We discussed hereg. Remember hereg? Hereg is what the Anshe Ir Hanidachas get. They get beheaded. Now we're going to talk about choking someone to death. Okay? Nechnak. That's called chenek. That is the last of the four. It's actually considered the most lenient of the four. Okay? Shenemar, right? So this person, this Navi Sheker gets chenek. Shenemar v'asher yidaber b'shem elokim acharim umeis hanavi hahu. When it says in the Torah umeis and it doesn't give a description, the expression is stam misa chenek. If it just says mace, we give him the lightest one. We give him the best way to die. Okay, of the four, if you ever had to pick, chenek is the way to go. Okay, because the pasuk says umeis hanavi hahu. The pasuk in Re'eh says that this person will die. And where's the warning? The warning is not in Dvarim, is way back in Shmos. It is in Parshas Mishpatim that says you shall not mention the name of God on your lips. So that's that. So I squeeze one more in. Yeah, why not? You can't, let's say if, this Navi comes to you and he discusses his plans and this vision that he had and all this shtus that he told you. What if you decide to debate him, right? And say, you know what, I just came back from Shana Bet and my Rebbe said that this whole thing doesn't make sense and there's only one God. And let's say this guy gets into a whole debate. Are you allowed to debate a Navi Sheker? Right? Like we see these debates on TV with all these all these religious versus non-religious. So is that a good thing to do? So the answer is no. You can't debate a Navi Sheker, and it's just going to lead to bad things. Nor can we ask him, hey, you claim to have heard, Jupiter talk to you. Show me a sign that I could actually believe you. We don't entice this Navi Sheker to perform any miracles. But if this Navi Sheker did it on his own, you should just ignore him. Don't think about him. And let's say if he does a magic trick, right? He pulls a rabbit out of his hat, literally, right? Like, wow, he must be the real deal. Are we allowed to think that? Says the Rambam, no. You're over a lo taseh shenemar lo tishma el divrei hanavi hahu. Do not listen to this Navi because he is full of it. V'chen Navi hasheker misasu bechenek. And as we mentioned before, that a false prophet, he gets chenek afal pisha nisnabe b'shem Hashem v'lo hisif v'lo gora. What if he just says, God came to me and he told me, halachas in the Torah, and there's nothing false in any of the statements that he made. He didn't add, he didn't subtract. Still, he gets punished. Shenemar achanavi asher yazid l'daber b'davar asher yazid l'daber davar b'shmi asher lo tivisi. Right? If God, right, that's what the pasuk by Navi Sheker says, and it says umeis hanavi hahu. Right? If you decide to speak and say that God came to me and said X, Y, and Z, okay, then he is chayiv misa. All right, we'll stop here. Good night.
Good night. Just don't talk to those